Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Healing Conversations. My name is Einav Avni, and I am an alignment coach and energy healer. I very specifically work with people suffering from chronic pain, chronic illness, or unexplained medical conditions to heal or reduce their symptoms. This podcast supports my message of healing chronic conditions naturally. And today I have with me Rachel Clark. Rachel, hello, very nice to have you here.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Wonderful. So let's get started. Tell us something about you.
I am a Reiki teacher and intuitive teacher, and I have been in the Reiki industry for about 14 years now. Um, and my primary business is physical, emotional, or spiritual healing, all different types, all different ages. My youngest client has 6 years old, and my eldest client was 77. So a wide range, but I love doing it.
Wonderful. So Reiki and intuitive healing, I guess that's what we're doing. So how do you approach that? Someone comes to you, what's the first thing that you do with them?
For Reiki, usually the first question I ask is if they've ever had a Reiki treatment, because I do get a lot of new clients who've never heard of Reiki before. So I explain to them what Reiki is and how it will feel in their body, where my hands will be on them or off them, depending on what their preference is. And then I just gently start asking them questions to find out what's bringing them to me. What issue do they have? And sometimes the issue that they're coming in to see me for is not the issue that's released in the session, which is always very interesting. But usually I start with the explanation of how Reiki works.
Yeah. Maybe we should touch on that as well.
Mm-hmm.
What is
Sweet.
Reiki and how does it work?
So Reiki is channeled energy. It's channeled from the highest of good, and it goes through the practitioner to the client, and it comes through our hands. There's, I think, about 100 different Reiki streams out there. They're all Reiki, and the client is usually lying down, or they can be sitting up in a chair. It's usually whatever's comfortable. That's for in person, and the same positions if we're doing a distance treatment, which is probably about 90% of my clients are distance treatments.
Mm.
And the Reiki that comes through helps to move stagnant or blocked energy or trapped emotions in the body and release them, and promotes the body's ability to heal itself.
Wonderful. I love it when people say that, because of course that's also the kind of energy healing that I use,
Yes.
which is really just bringing back, bringing the body's ability to heal itself. Um, and I love it. I always tell people exactly like you're saying. Sometimes what we release is not what you came here for, because the subconscious mind says, "Hey, I know how to heal myself, but actually there is this layer of trapped energy and blockages that I is just wasting my
Mm-hmm.
energy. So if you clear that, I'll go back and doing what I do best." And
Yes, exactly. Yeah, bringing the body back to balance. And
yeah,
it takes time. I mean, I will have clients that come in with an acute issue, and that might take 1 or 2 sessions, and they're feeling better. And then you have somebody that's coming in for chronic issues, where they've been dealing with something for their, potentially their entire life. If it's emotional or spiritual, and physical, it could be months, or they could be going through a cancer treatment, and they just want help to manage the symptoms of the chemotherapy while they're going through the treatment, but also help the body heal from
mm,
chemotherapy and the cancer.
yeah. It's so awesome, isn't it? That we have the ability and the knowledge to help people, going through all of these different things. You mentioned that there's 120 different streams of Reiki. What do you mean by that?
So there's Eastern Reiki and Western Reiki, but I'm trying to think of an example of it. It's the same as how do I explain that? There, all of the Reiki came from Master Usui, who rediscovered Reiki in the early 1900s, but Reiki had been around previously. And so as he taught people to the level of teacher, then some of them started their own streams of Reiki. I was just doing research to see how many there were. I mean, I couldn't name 120 Reiki streams for you, but there are a lot, and some of them are very specific to whichever teacher. So it's that lineage, whichever Reiki was developed, and people will channel a new stream, and then that new stream develops and another leg of Reiki starts.
Mm-hmm. And I know that you mentioned that you have your own stream as well.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, I would love to. So it's called Elementa Reiki, and I started channeling it in 2019. I had no idea that it was a Reiki stream. It was just, there was words and symbols and maps and things, but I knew that it was important and I needed to keep it. And at that point, I was only a Reiki level 1. And then from 2019 to 2022, I completed Reiki 2, Reiki 3, and then the teacher level, and also became a meditation and mindfulness instructor. I just absorbed anything in the energy industry. And as my abilities improved and I was practicing every day, I started getting more pieces of this and understanding that, this is a new Reiki stream. And it was probably the beginning of 2022 when I had started my teacher training that it was confirmed it was a new Reiki stream, and more chunks of the information started coming in. And then I downloaded the manual basically to teach it. So I've been teaching it for the last year.
So just for people like me who don't necessarily understand all of it, what is the difference between one stream to another? I mean, is it...
So I can give you an example. So there's different hand positions. So there's one Reiki stream. I don't know what the name of it is, but the client would be lying on their stomach, and there's a certain amount of hand positions done on their back. And then after 15 or 20 minutes, the client would turn over, and then they would put their hand positions on the front of the body. In other Reiki streams, there might be a certain meditation that's said while the Reiki is happening, or aromatherapy, like there's different components or other modalities brought in. In the Reiki stream that I've downloaded, it harnesses the Reiki energy, but it also harnesses the elements. So we're working with earth, wind, fire, water, and the ether. So that was what had come in. And it can be done online, so distance, and also in person.
Fascinating. So what brought you to Reiki to begin with?
So my youngest son, who's now 21, he was, I think it was just before his 9th birthday, was snowboarding with his brothers, who were 11 and 12. And they had learned to ski and snowboard from when they were like 2 years old. It was like walking for them. And they had gone for a weekend to snowboard, and I guess it had gotten icy. He was also like, he's still young, 9 years old is young. And he slid on the ice. He was tired and couldn't control, and tumbled down and lacerated his spleen, almost to the point of it being completely severed. So he was quite away from the Sick Kids Hospital for Children in downtown Toronto. But they brought him down after, it was, of course, a snowstorm as well. So it took a long time for him to get down there. When I arrived at the hospital, he was surrounded by 50 doctors, nurses, technicians checking every part of him. And he was, strapped to the board, head still. Sorry. He had sustained a very severe concussion. He had nicked his bowels, his intestines, but really it was the spleen, because it's such a it's an organ that has a lot of veins and arteries going through it. So he was put on like absolute bed rest, no moving, for 7 days in the hospital and being watched, because the risk of re-injury at that point could have completely severed his spleen. Came home, very, very long recovery of about 3 or 4 months. And one of my friends had recommended I take him to see a life coach, because it was a lot of trauma, not just for him, but also for his brothers, because they watched it happen. And this person happened to do Reiki.
Yeah.
And so she was giving him Reiki treatments, and he was curling into a little ball, telling me that there's no pain in his body when he had the treatment. And so we went every week, and he would sleep perfectly. And I'm quite sure it did help him heal much more quickly, and also helped the concussion, because he was having brutal, brutal headaches from it, even though he was wearing a helmet at the time. And so I was just amazed at his behavior changing, his sleep, his eat, the way he was improving and healing with this Reiki happening. And so the same friend said to me, so-and-so is teaching a class, a level 1, why don't you go take it? So I did. And that was in 2012, I took the course. And then after the accident, he started getting very sick. A lot of things started happening. And my older 2 boys became type 1 diabetic. So medical became my full-time job, taking them to appointments and getting things figured out all over the city. And so I did not take my next course for 7 years. But it was it was always in the back of my mind to go back to it. And then when I got divorced, it just became such a priority, like to move on to my path. When I took the first course, I went out and bought a massage table the next day. I was like, this is what I'm supposed to do, but I'm a mother and single parenting, and my kids have to be the priority. So it just got delayed a little bit. But now they're all thriving, as you know. Yes.
Everything has its own time. So
exactly.
It's all good. So moving back to now, when you're obviously advanced and you have more experience, more knowledge, more all of that, more wisdom.
Just more.
Derry, what would you say Reiki is for? Is there anything that you wouldn't use Reiki for, or is it something that you're more specifically encouraging people to come for you for treatment with?
It's for everything. It works very well on the physical body. That's probably a lot of my clients come for the physical healing, and then the emotional healing ends up happening. But I would say probably 50% of my business is for physical healing, and then the emotional healing comes in with that, and then maybe 20% for spiritual, which would be like healing past lives where someone's stuck in a pattern and they feel like they can't get past it and there's this giant block. Then we'll do past life healing as well, where I will walk them through, a past life trauma, and they can release it. There can often be physical aspects to that as well. But majority of it's physical. There was a period where I was treating a lot of cancer patients going through chemotherapy, or they had just finished and wanted to make sure it didn't come back. So they really wanted to do the physical healing, and a lot of emotions obviously come up with that particular one as well.
I'm curious about what you said about the past life. For some reason, I didn't actually connect Reiki with past life. So hey, here we are. So how is that something that you discover as you work on the person, or is that something that they would bring to you and say, hey, I think this is all ancestral or past life or something.
Mm-hmm. Not every Reiki stream, not every Reiki practitioner can do past life healing. It depends. Like that's where the different streams come in on abilities and levels. For a past life healing, it literally just comes up while, I'm having a conversation with the person, and it's divinely guided on what we're talking about and what they're open to sharing with me. And an example is someone that came in and they felt like they were stuck in this circle of trying to birth something, and they just kept falling short. They just kept getting stuck and going into the mindset of, I can't do it. There's no way, I'm not getting past this block. And as soon as we started doing Reiki, it came up that this person had been in many past lives hung, dragged by the neck, bound on the hands. But the dominant one was in I'm going to say the wrong word, but what's called where there's the head and the hands in the stockyard, stocks in the stocks, I think it's. So that was the image that I saw. And as soon as I said, this is what I'm seeing, the client erupted. And so we walked through the whole process of how they got to be in that position. But it was like they were stuck in that life.
You mean the thing like in the Wild West, right? Do you mean that?
More, it was in England, actually, like stuck. People are throwing, like in the, the communities throwing food and food scraps and stuff at them, and they're on the stage.
Not very pleasant.
No, not at all. And so after doing that, there was a huge release because, of course, it was very much in their throat, not being able to speak and move forward. And all of that just came up within the first probably 10 minutes of starting the Reiki.
Right.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, we're going to go this way. I can't even remember what she came in for physically. There was a physical thing, but when she left, she wasn't feeling that because she felt so much lighter having released that.
Fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
So when you work with past life healing, it's basically you, with your intuition, you get these downloads of what happened or what the person went through. So it's not necessarily they need to tell you what they see or feel or sense.
Well, sometimes it's what their sense, if they're talking specifically about, I have a really hard time speaking my mind, or when I start to talk, I feel like I'm being choked, and it doesn't pertain to this lifetime, then usually I'll be like, okay, let's just have a peek and see. And sometimes I'll get images that, like, for example, the first one I told you about, I think I saw about 20 lifetimes where similar things had happened pertaining to their neck being restricted. And it could have gone back further and further, but each one would need to be healed. So all of that takes time, but just healing that one made such a huge impact on their life.
Yeah, amazing. So tell me a little bit, I'm all about chronic pain, chronic illnesses. I explain medical conditions. So can you share some stories of people that came to you with some conditions and that they felt differently afterwards?
So a big one would be, I had a client that had unexplained, not complete loss of her legs, but she was at the point where she was walking with a cane. She had been to numerous doctors, like orthopedic, spinal surgeons. Sure, it was somewhere in her back that was causing the issue with her legs, and it had been going on for 2 years. So she goes, I have investigated everything. I've done acupuncture. I've done this and this and this. And she came to me, and when we started the Reiki, it was determined that she had lost a sibling, and we brought the sibling in to have a conversation. And this sibling had been estranged from the family for a long time and had come back just before they had passed away. And So I was thinking we need to focus on her legs. Maybe there's a pinched nerve that was missed or something like that. So spending a lot of time trying to move the physical there. But when I got to her legs and we were still talking, and I was telling her that her brother was coming in and saying that he was happy and she should be happy and conveying the messages, she started screaming, but not like a fear or a pain scream. It was a release scream. And we moved through the legs. And when she got up off the table, she did not need the cane to walk. And she still would have needed more sessions. But she now understood completely that it was to do with the loss of the sibling, and that she was still holding on to them, and she needed to let them go, knowing that they were okay. So it was a very, very powerful session.
I think it's, this is something that I, of course, come across all the time when people really don't understand how our emotions impact our body, and how much, how it is really all connected. And really, when you start suffering from something, the first thing that you should really do is ask yourself, what is it? What am I going through? What are the stressors? What are the pressure points? What's the emotions?
But we don't. It's not normal for people to say what's actually causing my stress, because stress is causing something else to happen in my body because I'm not dealing with the stress. But it's not the question most people ask. I mean, you and I would, but it isn't. People don't. They just want the Band-Aid solution to cover up that immediate pain, right?
Well, I guess they also then, as soon as they start feeling something, they go to the doctor, and the doctor doesn't think about emotions. And then they say, oh, it's this or that, or even worse, it's incurable. And then they believe them. And so there's no encouragement from the medical, community to look at emotions and stress. But I think on the other side, we're not encouraged to pause when there's stress in our lives. We don't encourage to say, this is what I'm going through. Let me really see what's going on. We actually more like, hey, it will be fine. I'm going through something, but I'll be fine. Let's not
Yeah,
talk
that's
about
very
it.
true.
And these things, of course, they have to come out somewhere at some point. So it's good. It's nice to kind of have that from the Reiki point of view, like you say, that you feel that with the energy blockages in the body, and then you're able to have this conversation that says, actually, yes, it's
Well,
the
it's
emotional side.
Reiki feels like that warm blanket of safety getting wrapped around you. So the clients feel very comfortable to when you start to probe, to talk about something. And sometimes they will, I mean, very often in a Reiki treatment, a client will say, I haven't thought about that for 20, 30 years. But it was something that was still trapped.
Yeah, trapped. Trapped is the key word here.
It is, yes.
Yeah. And tell me, we call this conversation today "Overcoming the Myth of Energy Work." What's behind this title?
The myths of energy work. A lot of people will avoid alternative therapies of any kind because they don't believe it works. And when it's energy work specifically, like you can't see the Reiki, and people are like, well, it's not working. There's also a feeling that you have to look a certain way, talk a certain way to be in the industry, like as a worker. So it also discourages people from learning, because the best gift you can give yourself is to teach yourself another form of healing. I had another one in my head and it just left.
It will come back. It's okay. It will come back.
Yeah.
Right.
I think the big one is fear. It's the fear of, I don't know what this is. I don't know what it's going to do. And I don't believe it's going to work. So they avoid trying it.
Yeah, that's Yeah, I've seen, of course, I've seen this before as well. It's really quite funny, really, because people, of course, I like working with people that say I don't understand it, but I know it works. So
Yes,
let's
those are my favorite. Yes.
yes, but it's really fascinating for me is that when people really are able to see that actually we don't have limits. We haven't discovered our limits yet. And it's the same, with anything that we're suffering from. And even if you have just a 1% chance of getting better after trying all of these other things that didn't help, then
Mhm.
let's come here and try. And and sometimes, someone I had another podcast that was talking about dementia and being able to reduce the symptoms or recover from that. And then people say, but you don't recover from that because you have the brain cells they die, so you can't recover from that. Some people say that, and I'm saying actually
Mm.
we don't need to get into what you can and what you can't, because we haven't come to that place that it says, right, that's it. This is the limit. This is, you can't continue from here.
Mhm.
There's a combination of different things that will create realities that we can't even imagine. So instead of saying concentrating and focusing on what we can't achieve, let's focus instead of, hey, how can we make this happen? There's magic all around us.
Mhm. Absolutely. And even just the beginning of removing the can't. It's,
Yeah.
it's not going to work. It can't work. It's not proven. But there are tons of studies out for Reiki and meditation. Uh, I'm trying to think where it was, but when I was doing research, there were quite a lot of studies done for PTSD specifically,
Mhm.
uh, and Reiki with chemo. Um, how much it reduces the effects, the side effects from chemo. And in fact, in many hospitals now, they will have Reiki practitioners in the chemotherapy.
Yeah.
So people are getting exposed to it in conjunction with science, with allopathic medicine. So I see that changing a lot in the next 20 years, where alternative medicine, especially with COVID happening, a lot more people looked and had time
Yeah.
to look into other things, and I think more people will be moving to that side.
I like, that we kind of say, if there is only one person, even if there's just one person that managed to heal from something, there is a chance that you can heal from that too.
Mhm.
And so now let's go and explore that. And it's so liberating, really, to say, actually, I'm going to look into that.
Mhm.
It's the complete opposite of the doom and gloom that you kind of received from the medical professionals. Um, so yeah, I mean, I definitely feel that being in the movement where we talk about alternative healing and natural healing, it's the way forward. I mean, it really is. I mean, of course, medical
It used to be.
professions, it has its place in the world. I'm not saying it doesn't, but it's really about this encouragement to say, hey, let's try, let's talk, let's have a conversation, let's do something.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. Do you have any success stories or case studies that you can share about, yeah, just having a go and getting this incredible results? Um,
Um, sorry. Uh, I had one client who was a young adult. Uh, I think they were 19, 20, and were suffering from very, very dark days, very severely depressed, anxiety disorder, panic disorder. And the very first session that I did with them, I could feel the just extremely low energy that was stuck to them. And when I released that, they sat up immediately and said, I can breathe. Everything is like, I can see. Like, they felt like a completely different person, but they had been carrying these like low energies with them for a long period of time that was impacting their thoughts. Like their heart palpitations started to go away from panicking, and worked with them for a few months and thriving now. The other one is one particular cancer patient. I think it was their third time. The cancer had come back the third time, and it was reproductive, but it was now metastasizing to their bowels and intestines. And we worked together twice a week for 10 weeks, which was the entire course of their chemotherapy treatment. And by the end of it, there was no cancer left in her body.
Oh, I love that story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And she said that the symptoms, on the days she had Reiki, that the symptoms from the chemotherapy, because I guess she would drop quite a bit of weight, she just couldn't eat anything. She ate, she slept well, she had no pain in her body. And then, that's why we were doing it twice a week too. But it was really, really good results from her.
I love it because also, I think we kind of touched on it before, that sometimes when people don't believe, then they will say, okay, I'm coming here for, let's have a go with one session. And then, and I know that sometimes the best results are not coming after the first session.
That's
they come
right.
after one. And when they say, okay, I'm only going to try one session, you kind of say, do what you want, really, it's your choice. But, if you really want to experience the healing and the change, you have to let things take however long they take. It's,
Mm-hmm.
We don't really know how long, but
exactly, because when it's acute, the number of treatments they would need is less, because they're coming in quickly, like at the beginning of an illness. When it's chronic, it can take a very long time, because it's taken a long time for them to get to that point. So
yeah, that's a very important point, I think, for people to hear.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But this story with the cancer, I really love it. It's everyone knows someone with cancer, and that brings a lot of really nice hope for people. So that's really encouraging.
Yeah, I really hope that more and more hospitals, cancer treatment centers, bring other energy workers in to help with the side effects of chemotherapy.
Yeah. And so tell me, Rachel, let's talk about your book.
Yes. The book is called Beyond Coincidence, and it's coming out on Amazon on May 30th, which I think is next Thursday. So in a week, yes. And it's about the synchronicities and success in the world. So it's a group of women from all over the globe, and we each have written a chapter, some on success and some on synchronicities, and mine was on synchronicities, and my chapter's about listening to the messages from the universe and what happens when you listen to them, and then what happens when you don't. So messages come all the time. For example, looking right now, I see that there are sunflowers behind you, which I actually talked about in my chapter. Sunflowers are one of my mom's favorite flowers. She also loved Gerber daisies, but she did love sunflowers too. And so when I see a sunflower, I know that I'm meant to connect with that person, or it's a space I'm supposed to move into, or there's something that I need to investigate. It's a message coming. We get messages through numbers, or even, you might be thinking about somebody and then they call you or they text you or connect with you. The messages are coming. For me, it was the message to move when my son was injured with Reiki, or was injured and he had Reiki treatments, and then I moved into the Reiki field. Was for 7 years, I didn't pursue it, knowing it was my path, but not fully being aware of it. And a lot of things happened that were not good. But eventually I got back on it. And once I made the commitment, a lot of things just started falling into place for me.
Wow. So tell me, I am very curious. How do you recognize the messages? How do you know when you've ignored them?
So usually when you ignore something, there's a correction. So I'm trying to think of a recent example. Okay, so I booked a flight to go to BC, and I was hearing that I was going to have a specialist appointment, and I knew it was coming, and I thought I should book the ticket for the Tuesday or something. And I'm like, no, I want to spend an extra day with my other two kids. I'll, leave on the Monday. Sure enough, the appointment comes in. It's on the Monday. So I have to change my ticket. Like, that's a very, very simple one. A lot of the times it could be a number sequence. Like, that seems to be a very popular one. The angel numbers, the double digits. And I explain to my clients, because everyone loves to hear about it. I will tell them, if you actually pay attention to those numbers, you'll see that it's completing a little cycle or maybe a little lesson if you get to the 9. So watch for all of them, not just, 888 is amazing, or 333 is amazing. Look for 1, 2, 3, look for the whole sequence. You're probably going to see that a lot now that we're talking about it. And the other one is just asking for guidance. You just ask directly, from the higher power. I need an answer on this or this. And say, if it's a yes, I'd like to see a magpie. If it's a no, I'd like to see a zebra. You can do things like that. But the zebra might not be the zebra in the zoo. It could be a sticker, or, an image, or a stuffed toy, or something like that.
Yeah.
It pops up a lot more than we know.
Yeah.
But if you miss it, you'll get the nudge again.
Yeah. That's funny. Yes, I guess I pay attention sometimes, right? I especially with the numbers, and I say something, and then I look at the clock, and it's always 11:11. I'm like, that's in alignment, but it's just a little kind of a push that like a little confirmation that I'm getting. But I guess I like this idea of saying, okay, if it's a yes, it's a magpie, and if not, it's a zebra. Zebra sounds good. I like that.
Sometimes you won't even ask for the yes or no. You'll see something, and you'll like feel it in your heart that's for me. Like a butterfly. Walking with my son and my dog yesterday, we saw this almost electric purple butterfly, which I'd never seen. And it followed us on the entire path. And I was like, well, that's my mother or my father. They're checking up on us, making sure we're safe.
Yeah. I remember I had a client once, and it was really quite funny. She was in a very unhappy relationship in a foreign country, and she said, "Oh, every now and again, there's a robin that comes to my window," and I say, she said, "I think it's it was my mom's favorite bird, so I'm taking it as a sign that I'm okay, I'm safe, and I'm meant to stay here." And I said to her, or maybe this is, the robot is actually telling you, hey, you are safe wherever you are, you may go. You don't have to stay in a place that you are so unhappy. But we never came to the bottom of what the robin meant. But it was interesting that you could kind of interpret in 2 different ways.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I'm curious, what would you make of it? Do you think it's her mom saying that she should stay, or that she should go?
I think she's saying that she's safe and that she should go.
Yeah. I felt it very strong, but I couldn't really, I didn't have a.
If the person doesn't believe it, I mean, it goes back to that fear again. It's believing in something that you can't necessarily prove. So you have to take the leap of faith, especially in that type of living environment.
Yeah. Yeah. Rachel, it's nearly time for us to finish for the day, but what message would you like to leave our listeners with?
The message I would leave them with is to take a leap of faith and investigate alternative methods to promote your body's ability to heal itself. There are so many out there, and you just have to find the one that resonates with you the most.
I like that. I like that a lot. And so with this in mind, of course, anyone listening, if you want to get in touch with Rachel and find out more about her or her methods, or how her methods can help you in your healing journey, then all of her information is going to be somewhere in the show notes, and you're very welcome to get in touch and take this conversation forward. Thank you. Thank you so much, Rachel. Thank you, everyone else, for listening. Thank you. I think there was lots of lovely nuggets here that people can take away and make for a happier, healthier life.
Yes, yes, definitely.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.